Listen, do you hear it? That quiet, steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, it hums beneath the old boards, tucked deep within timber worn by sun and story. It's not just the creak of wood or the wind brushing through the rafters. No, it's something older, something alive. This is the soul of a traditional barndominium. Before the buzzwords, before the glossy catalogs, there were barns. Honest, weather-tough barns, built by hands that knew the weight of labor and the meaning of shelter. But over time, they became something more. A space where haylofts held more than straw, where love, life, and legacy found room to grow. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it's a simple way to show your love for these incredible designs. And somewhere along the way, these barns, they didn't just house animals or tools, they became homes. Not by design, not at first, but because people saw the beauty in the bones, the warmth in the worn wood, the comfort in a structure that had already weathered 100 storms. Tonight, we're not just touring a house, we're stepping into memory, into intention, into something built to endure, and made to feel like home. So come closer, there's a story here, and it's ready to begin. Before there were floor plans or building permits, there was just land. Open, wide, and waiting. Families arrived with nothing more than a wagon, a hammer, and a dream. They built what they needed, one beam at a time. A home on one side of the field, a barn on the other. A dirt path between them, worn down by footsteps, chores, and time. The barn stood strong, bracing against storms, its rafters echoing with the rhythm of hard work. It stored hay, held livestock, sheltered tools, but it also held more than that. It held the daily grit of survival and the quiet hope that tomorrow might be just a little easier. As years passed, a thought began to take root. What if these two lives, the practical and the personal, didn't have to be divided? What if shelter and shelter for dreams could live under one roof? So they began to build differently. Not out of trend, but out of necessity. The barn became more than function. It became family. The same wood that once held feed now held laughter. The same walls that knew winter now knew warmth. This is where the story deepens, where resilience wasn't just survival. It was the beginning of legacy. We share new content regularly to help you create spaces you love, so don't forget to subscribe. Run your hand along the beam and you'll feel it. Not just the grain of old wood, but the grooves of time. Every mark, every notch, every handmade joint tells a story. These are mortise and tenon connections, crafted not with glue or nails, but with patience, precision, trust. Like two hands fitting together, one builder to the next, one generation to another. They don't just hold up the structure. They hold everything. The laughter of children echoing off the rafters. The silence after harvest. The weight of years, and yet somehow, the lightness of memory. Up in the loft, where the hay once slept, a different kind of treasure rested. Folded letters, wrapped in a ribbon no longer read. A grandmother's handwriting still elegant, still breathing. Notes exchanged in secret, words inked with hope. The scent of old paper clings to the beams like perfume, never quite fading. These walls? They're more than structure, they're keepers of secrets, of sorrow, of joy, and they're not done speaking yet. Because inside this timber, there are still more stories waiting, still more echoes to chase, still more truths tucked into corners, pressed between floorboards, just waiting for us to find them. High above the ground where hay once rustled in the breeze and barn owls kept quiet watch, the loft awakens. No longer a space for straw and pitchforks, now it breathes differently. A library lit by soft candlelight. Books stacked where feed once lay. It's quiet here, reverent almost, as if the room knows it's been reborn. Open space wasn't some design magazine dream. Back then, it was survival. Air had to flow. Heat had to rise. Eyes needed to see from one end of the barn to the other, because animals depended on it, and so did the people who cared for them. Walls were a luxury, so the barndominium grew with that same openness, but now it welcomed family instead of livestock, conversation instead of cattle. Sliding barn doors, once gruff and grease-streaked, now glide along polished rails, part entryway, part memory. They don't just divide rooms, they carry the weight of years spent opening and closing, shielding and revealing. And it makes you wonder, if these walls could speak, what would they say first? The midnight whisper of a child's secret? The creak of footsteps sneaking toward a first kiss? Whatever the answer is, it's still echoing. Outside, the rain begins its gentle tap against the corrugated metal roof, a rhythm both restless and familiar. Inside, the fire answers with its own voice, low and steady, crackling through the hush like a lullaby for the past. If you found this video inspiring, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means to me, and it helps keep the design ideas coming your way. The walls are clad in rough-cut cedar, weathered and wild, their texture still bearing the scrape of tools and time. But draped across every worn surface are soft wool throws, knitted with care, folded just so. This is the quiet tension of the traditional barndominium. Rugged meets refuge, where the scent of earth and wood lives in harmony with the comfort of cushions and kindling. There's a reason barns were painted red, they say. The folklore goes that long ago, the color was a beacon, glowing even in moonlight, guiding travelers through storms and across fields. A symbol of shelter, of welcome, of safety. And in that way, these spaces have always been more than shelter from the elements. They've been refuge from the world. But just when you think you've stepped into something untouched by time, you notice something. A shimmer, a soft hum, something new woven into the old. If you love this type of look, hit that subscribe button to help us create more videos. And let us know in the comments what you'd love to see in future videos. The past may guide us here, but what's coming next will surprise you. Beneath one gabled roof, lifetimes unfold. Look closely at the walls, and you'll see more than just grain and nail heads. You'll see generations. A faded photograph tucked into a frame. A newer one beside it, beaming with the same eyes, the same chin, the same quiet pride. This is where legacies live. Not just in the timber, but in the moments it holds. A birth in the upstairs room, soft cries and new beginnings. A wedding in the open hall, string lights tangled with laughter. A farewell at the hearth. Stories passed like heirlooms before the final goodbye. The space bends and flexes with every season of life. One day, it's a dining room overflowing with Sunday stew and voices talking over each other. The next, it's a quiet reading nook where a child learns to dream. Because legacy isn't brick and mortar. It's the sound of silverware clinking and someone's favorite song humming through the rafters. It's the smell of cinnamon rolls in winter and muddy boots drying by the door. But the question begins to flicker. What happens when the old makes room for the new? When tomorrow's tools meet yesterday's heartwood, will the soul remain? Let's find out. At first glance, everything feels untouched, timeless. The soft light, the grain of reclaimed wood, but then a shift. A glow that wasn't here a century ago. The light flicks on without a switch. The room warms, not from the fire, but from the floor beneath your feet. Hidden in the walls, in the rafters, in the silence, technology hums softly, respectfully. Smart lighting tucked behind century-old beams. geothermal vents disguised beneath planks pulled from a long-forgotten barn. Solar panels stretch quietly across the roof like new leaves clinging to ancient vines. Nothing shouts for attention here. Everything is woven in like a gentle update to an old love letter.